Good morning and welcome to your fourth online art lesson. We are going to continue the theme today of drawing portraits. Last week we looked at plotting in the basic guidelines and the facial proportions when drawing a portrait, and today onwards we're going to be looking at drawing individual features of the face. So today we're going to start off with drawing the eye. In your work packs, I've left some blank pages for you, so feel free to take up the full page when you're drawing the eye on this one today, and then you can go back and add the features to your portrait that you started last week. So your learning objectives are how to draw an eye, demonstrate some accuracy in your drawing, and how to add detail and turn to your drawing. The equipment that you'll need is a pencil, a rubber, some paper. If you do have any cotton wool buds, that would be brilliant. If not, a bit of tissue will be fine. Okay, I'm just about to show you a short demonstration of the basics on drawing an eye. Okay, so I'm going to start off by drawing a circle. If you want to, you can use something to draw around. So if you wanted to use a side plate or something like that, that's absolutely fine, just to get this main part put in place. Okay, and this circle, this is what's going to be the actual eyeball. Okay, so remember to draw this lightly because you're not going to need all of this. This here is just a rough guideline to show where your eye socket's going to go. Okay, so once I've drawn that circle, I'm going to start plotting in the actual shape of the eye. Okay, so this bit here that I'm drawing, that's going to be the tear duct. So that's just the corner of your eye, which is just near your nose. Okay, and the eye is kind of like an almond shape. Okay, so as you can see, I'm just using the shape of the eyeball as a guide. Okay, and that will allow you to have your eyelid, that crease that you have just above your eye, so that there will give some definition, the top part of the eyeball. Okay, if you feel like you need to pause this at any point, then feel free to do so. Okay, and now I'm just going to start drawing the pupil. Okay, so you need to draw this slightly to the top of the eye, just because your pupil never really sits like central. You'll see what I mean in a moment when I start drawing the iris in place. Okay, and I'm just going to pop a little highlight on the pupil, and that's just because our eyes reflect the light. Okay, so our eyes really, we've got lots of moisture in them, so that's the reason why they reflect the light. Okay, and I'm just going to make the pupil quite dark. Okay, so if you have access to a cotton wool bud at home, you can use a cotton wool bud as well, just to smooth over the top. I'll show you that in a moment. So I'm just using a darker pencil now, just to darken that so it's really dark. Okay, and that just gives it a nice soft touch to it. Okay, and then what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start drawing another circle. So this here is the iris, so the coloured part of the eye. So use your pencil as a guideline if you want, just to make sure that that circle is really nice and neat. So your pupil should be sat in the middle of that circle. Okay, and remember, if you keep your lines and the pressure of the pencil really light, it makes it easy to rub out any mistakes. Okay, so I'm just going to rub that top part out because I don't need that anymore. And any of the marks around there. And now I'm just going to rub out some of these guidelines that I've used for the eye socket, just to show where that crease would be at the top of your eye, and that's just where your skin hangs over from your eyeball. It also adds a little bit of definition, and you can use that as a shadow line later on to make it look more realistic. Okay, I'm just going to connect those down to the bottom. Okay, so now I'm going to start drawing in the iris. So the iris is the coloured section just around your pupil. Okay, so when you're drawing this in, do it as if you're like drawing spokes on a bicycle. Okay, so you're going straight from the centre out to the edge. Okay, so these lines, they're actually, the lines that you see, the coloured section in your eye is actually muscle. Okay, and that's what pulls your pupil back and forth. Okay, so again, just like I've left the highlights in the pupil, I'm going to leave a little section of this as well, just so that it's really light. So again, it makes it look much more realistic, makes it look like the light shining down on it. Okay, so I'm just going to speed this up a little bit. Okay, so again, you can use the cotton bud just to lightly go over that and blend that in. You don't want to blend it in too much because you want to see some of those lines. You really need to see some of that texture. And then here I'm just adding some extra detail in. Okay, and the colour of the iris tends to be dark around the edges, so you can just add that lightly with the pencil. And again, it tends to be darker just underneath your eyelid because that's where the shadow is cast. Okay, so I'm just going to darken this area here slightly. Okay, so by adding some different tones to it, it'll start making your work look really realistic and a lot more 3D. Okay, and now I'm just going to add in this line that you've got on the bottom of your eyelid, and that's the fleshy line where your eyelashes come out at the bottom. I'm just going to add a little bit of definition to that. So this here can be quite tricky sometimes, getting it the same thickness all the way along. So remember, if you do make any mistakes, just rub it out. Okay, and I'm just going to leave a little bit of a highlight in the middle of this, just to make it look more 3D. And also the light will catch that area too. Okay, and I'm just going to darken the insides of the eyeball and add a bit of definition around the top. Okay, and just by shading in slightly around the edges, you'll really make your eyeballs stand out more and make it look like it's more 3D. Remember, it's round, so you need to show the definition of that area. And you can just use the cotton wool bud to blend that in. And I'm just going to do the same to the other side. And add some shading and turn to the top eyelid. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit more shadow into that bottom area. So again, if you haven't got a cotton wool bud, use tissue, that's absolutely fine. Avoid using your fingers when you're blending your work. When you're using your fingers, you've got oils on your fingers, so you're just transferring that onto your paper, and again, it makes it look quite grubby and it's hard to rub out any mistakes if you've transferred oil onto the paper. Okay, so I'm just about to start adding the eyelashes. Okay, so when you're adding the eyelashes, it's a case of starting off with less is more. So I'm just going to start adding the strands individually. Okay, and you'll see how I'm thickening the base of some of the eyelashes. Okay, that's just because they look a lot fuller around the bottom, and then you can start adding a few more individual lashes as well. Okay, again, when you're doing the bottom lashes, start off with just a few, and again, they look a lot more fuller around the bottom, and that just adds a little bit of definition as well to the bottom of the eye. Okay, and if you want your eyelashes to be a little bit longer, just add a few longer lashes. Okay, and that way you can still see the eyelid. Okay, so I'm just going to start defining some areas of the work. So this is when you're refining your work and you're just going in and adding a little bit of extra detail. Okay, so I'm just making that area underneath the eyelid just a little bit darker. Okay, and just darkening the pupil. And if you haven't put the highlight in place or you've gone over it, that's absolutely fine. You can go back and you can use rubber just to add the highlight as well, or like I've just done here, just added a little bit more to it. Okay, so I'm just going to stop it there. Again, if you feel like you need to, just go back and check any areas and keep pausing as you're going through. If you want to have a couple of practice runs at this, again, feel free to do so. Okay, so I've just added this slide really as a checklist, just so that you're checking that you're drawing the correct amount of space between the iris and the pupil, that you're adding enough turn, and basically on how you're doing your eyelashes and other details. Feel free though just to go back to different parts of the demonstration if you feel more comfortable working that way, and that's absolutely fine. Finally, I've just added a quick exit quiz. So first, what is the iris? So what is the purpose? The iris again, the coloured area around the pupil, what is that there for? How many circles should you start with when drawing the eye? And why should you add a highlight to the pupil when drawing? Okay, so again, like last week, if any of you would like to send pictures in to the school's Instagram account, that would be brilliant. Like I say, it's great to see the work that you're all producing and the progress that you're making at home. Just a reminder, next week we will be looking at drawing facial features still, and we will be looking at how to draw the nose. Thank you and take care.